preying on immigrant communities, undocumented communities, preying on them and the fear that they have. And we want to connect folks to our office so that we can prosecute those who are preying on them. And additionally, we want to be able to connect folks to services, our victim witness services, to help accompany folks to courthouses. We have people who are afraid to come to our courthouses because there's been reports of ICE agents who are there. We are not working with them. But what we want to do is to be able to connect you with resources so that you don't have the fear of coming forward and getting the justice that you need. Lastly, because I know we want to take questions, in addition to dealing with the issues of violence, in addition to dealing with immigration reform, we've also been dealing with the issue of wrongful convictions and the history that we've had in this county as it relates to that. We recognize that criminal prosecution is a human endeavor, that we make mistakes. And when you make mistakes, the first thing that you should do is own it, acknowledge it, and then correct it, and then work on ways to not repeat the same mistakes over and over again, because there's a human cost to that. And for us in law enforcement who need for you to work with us, to pick up the phone, to call, to come to courthouses, if you don't trust that when we make mistakes that we fix them, if you don't trust that when you come to the criminal justice system that it will be fair and just, then you are reluctant to call. And so we're working on a wrongful conviction unit to right the wrongs that have happened in years past, and then to learn from those mistakes, to build training protocols, to build things in place so that we don't see things like that happening in the future. But every day, all day, our office is dealing with the violence that we've seen plaguing our communities, and we need, absolutely need, the help of the community to help us do our jobs. As the commander said, and I make no bones about it, I cannot be successful just by myself. I cannot be successful just the commander and I. In order for us to deal with the violence that's plaguing our communities, it's a triangle. It's my office, it's the police department, and it's the community. If the community is unable to work with us, we're not going to be at our best and highest use. And so we need you. And that means that we will come to you and meet you where you are. We will engage with you in the ways in which you need us to engage, because we absolutely need you to help us deal with the violence that's plaguing our communities, to help us work on prevention programs, to help us build out what we know are safe communities that all of us deserve. And so I want to thank Alderman Garza for her support in having put this coalition together and realizing that it is a community effort. And I want to thank her for always advocating on behalf of the 10th Ward, making sure that you have the resources that you need. And I look forward to working with you, not just in this past 4 months, but for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Things, and I just kind of want to piggyback. None of us up here can do our job alone. I think we've all said that. It's really easy for everybody to point fingers and say, you did this or they did that, but you know what? We can't do this by ourselves. We're all just one person. And you know, people say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Well, work with us. Work together. We're having a clean and green on Saturday. People complain all the time about the garbage and this, that, and the other thing. Come on out and help. We're meeting at our office at 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. We have about, 9 or 10 different sites that have been called in that want, people want to help clean. So if you'd like to help out, come on out. Please report crime. Call 911. Don't be afraid. That's the only way we know if something's wrong. If there's a pothole or a street light, I never say it's a complaint. People say, I don't like to complain. It's not a complaint, it's concern. I can't fix it if I don't know it's broke. I can't. Our doors are always open, and I can say that for everybody sitting up here. Our doors are always open, and we're always willing to help. So now we're going to do some question and answers. I know some people have passed cards to Nicole. She can read the questions out loud, or if you'd like to take the mic, out of respect for my friend Stella, we're going to let Stella go first. All right. Stella! There's a mic
now they can hear me. They can hear me in China.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I see familiar faces. I've been here for 85 years. Like the commander says, nothing is what it used to be. Why? Because as the world changed, so do we. As our generations grow, our criminal, our abiding citizens change. Why do they change? Because it's the times. During these times, we can see that if we don't put our heads together, we are going to fail. Commander, I would like for you to answer my question. Why is it that now, after these many years that you've been here, things have gone down the drain? Answer me that one, sure. And we may get another answer of another question.
Okay. First of all, I've only been here as commander for the last year and a half, okay? In the year and a half that I've been here, one of the reasons this didn't happen overnight, I'm not going to be able to fix it overnight. One of my biggest problems that I have is lack of participation from the community. People tell me, oh, this is happening over here, this is happening over here. And we'll look, and I can pull all the calls for service, and I'll have 2 calls for service. That's it. It's like we bury our heads in the sand. Crime is going up and we don't report it. My neighbor had his car broken into. He left his door unlocked. I keep telling them, folks, we don't live in Mayberry. I'm not Andy Griffin. This isn't what it used to be. Times have changed. You need to lock your doors. Remember the days when people used to sweep in front of their house and everybody knew who everybody was and everybody said, everybody goes home after work, closes the door, closes the blinds, turns off the lights, and we're safe in our home. We need to be a little bit more active in our block and our community. That's how we need to get back to that. I'm all willing to help anybody and everybody. We're starting new programs with our CAPS. CAPS failed from the police department. I'll take the hit on that one. I'm part of the police department. CAPS started strong. We dropped the ball. We dropped the ball. But now we're trying to get back. We're trying to build the trust with the community. We're trying to get the community back involved. We need your help to get that back to where it once was. We've created a pilot program on the north end of the city, of my district. It's called the Group Me App. You create a block club. The block club then does a phone tree. What we do is we're in contact with the block club president. Anytime something happens in your neighborhood, anytime we have a pattern of any kind where somebody's getting robbed or something like that, and we need you to know about it, since we don't get people to come to the community meetings, we don't call them beat meetings anymore. Since we don't get too many people to come to the community meetings, like stuff like this, what'll happen is, how do I get you that information so that you are aware of what's happening on your block, around the block, in your neighborhood? So that we created the Group Me app. We didn't create it, but we now use it, and then what we do is we'll send you the information so that you can tell all your neighbors, the elderly, whoever the case is that lives on your block, that don't come out to us, to say, hey, by the way, they robbed Father John over at OLG on 91st in Baltimore, or this happened, or that happened, or they're stealing cars over in this neighborhood, or if somebody's left their stuff out in front and they stole it. We want you to know about those things, but if you don't come to the community meetings, it's hard for me to reach every single body. I can't go to every single meeting, but in retrospect, I'm working on fixing this district. That's why I don't want to leave this district. I want to make sure that what I start, I finish. A lot of times, if you're successful, they'll move you, they'll promote you. I'll be the first to admit to you, I just turned down a promotion. I don't want to go. I want to stay. I'm working on this because it hurts me, like I said. I grew up at 87th and Muskegon. I went to Bowen High School. I have value in this day. I still live in this district. It kills me when I hear shots were fired 4 blocks from my house. You know how angered I get when I see that, or I hear that? I need your help, folks. You, every single body, next community meeting that we have, bring your neighbor, bring someone out so that I can give you what's happening so that you are my eyes and ears. I tell you, I'm a short policeman. You guys are my eyes and ears so that you can help me, so that I, in turn, help you. That's how it's going to work, okay?
Would anybody else like to ask their own question instead of the card? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jocelyn Rangel. I'm one of the residents. I've lived here for about 39 years in the 10th ward. My question, after a small observation between Sue and the police commander and the police officers, a lot of us go to our community meetings. We're engaged. We have our meetings that we call. We're constantly being told to call 911 when we do hear crime or we see suspicious activity, not people, but specific behaviors that are suspicious that, when you think that there's some crime that's going to happen, when we see behaviors congregating and basically making the area that we live in unlivable due to intimidation or open air drug dealing, things like that. We're constantly doing our part. We show up to the meetings, we engage our neighbors, and we work with our Alderwoman and we work with our police. And last week, I'm sure you know, for about almost 2 weeks now, WPDM did a story on your state's attorney's office. And Judge Pt2 was upset that your office refused to prosecute imputed gang members for parole probation violation. These are the things that we're hearing when we're at these community meetings, and you're hearing our young mothers and children speaking and pleading with police officers that they can't let their kids play outside. And the police officers themselves have been in these meetings with the commander and the police officer Carol, who saying call them in. A lot of these imputed gang members have long records. The condition of their parole is that they cannot congregate with other imputed gang members. So my question to you, Kim Fox, your state's attorney's office, is what message are you sending to the engaged citizens and the engaged law enforcement that when your office refuses to prosecute known gang members for these what seem like small violations on paper, how does that not undermine the efforts of your engaged citizens and your engaged law enforcement?
That's a good question. And I want to be clear, one of the reasons that I talked about our conviction rate is because there's a difference between arrest and prosecution. And our job in the state's attorney's office is to make sure, based on the facts and the evidence and the law, that we're going to be able to prosecute those cases. So in that particular case, and we look at cases on a case-by-case basis, but we also look at the history of how those prosecutions go. Because one of the things that's really frustrating is in those cases that even if we charge them, and in that case we didn't do at the bond hearing, where at that point all you needed was probable cause. But for us to be able to be successful on those cases, the burden of proof isn't just probable cause. Do we believe that they did something? In order for us to be successful in prosecution, we have to prove on a violation of probation that they more likely did something than not. And the way that we prove it, particularly in those cases, it's not enough that someone can say, I think that person is a gang member and they're violating their parole. We have to prove it. A couple of ways that we're able to prove it. One, the person who is the accused admits it. They say, you know what, I knew that Anna, forgive me, that Anna was a member of a gang. If they admit it, then we can prove the violation. Most defendants don't want to do that. The least cooperative people tend to be the people who have something to lose. The other way that we can prove it is if Anna says, I am a member of a gang, and Kim knew that I was a member of a gang, and told me, I know you're a member of a gang and we're going to hang out together. What ends up happening in those cases, the overwhelming majority of those cases, we lose them. We lose them. My refusal to prosecute is not because I don't think that those are serious offenses or that we want to undermine what's happening in the community. We also want to be honest about how we're using our resources. And we don't want to give a false sense of doing something when those guys walk out the door after that bond hearing. And so whether if instead of at the bond hearing, where Peggy Champus, who used to work in our office and knows what happens with these cases, it happens at the preliminary hearing. And at the preliminary hearing, we have to try to put forth evidence, and the judge will say we can't meet our burden. That happens every single day on these types of cases. And so as I said from the beginning, we're trying to work with our partners in law enforcement, and those aren't cases that we charge, they come to us. to build strong cases from the very beginning, so that we're not given a false sense of hope. Everyone who's arrested, that's why I said a 52%, and people are shocked. I'm gonna tell you, I was shocked to hear a 52% conviction rate. That means you have a 50-50 chance of being found not guilty. And I don't think people knew that. I didn't know that. And so when we looked at pockets of our cases or where we were losing them the most, those violations, we lose a lot because the burden of proof is really hard. It doesn't mean that we don't try, but it means that we work with our partners to build strong cases from the beginning so that we're successful, not just at bond court, which is the first hearing, but at trial or a violation of probation. So one of the messages, or the message that I'm trying to send, is that we have to take violent crime very seriously. We have to use our resources not to do a show. It's not, we can't do criminal exercise or law enforcement for show. We have to be successful so that I can come back and tell you that when we charge those cases, we are successfully prosecuting those cases to the end and people are getting time. And the sad reality is, on the overwhelming majority, almost 95% of those cases are unsuccessful when we take them to hearing.
Anybody else like to ask their own question?
So let me just, can I do these before because they turn around?
Sure.
Okay, so this one is for the Alderman's office. What is the strategy to clean vacant and abandoned buildings? What is the strategy to bring businesses to the ward?
Okay, so the strategy to clean vacant buildings is, first of all, we have to find who the owner is, right? And then after that, our ward soup can always ticket the buildings, we can find the buildings, but because the city is so far behind, it takes about 6 months for that person to receive the ticket. We have one person in this ward that has about $2,200 worth of tickets on their property, and they still haven't cleaned it up. So I work with the building departments, the building inspectors, they'll come out, they'll look at the building, they'll write violations, the people have to go to court. It's a long, drawn-out process. The ward superintendent cannot go into someone's backyard. We can clean the front, we can, have somebody cut the grass or something like that, but we cannot go into the backyard of private property. So, it's kind of hard because the system is so backed up with the tickets, and I mean, it's left to, I'll give you a great example of this. You know the slag piles on 100 right across from Wolf Lake? Okay, that guy has over $2 million in tickets that he owes the city, and he's just not paying them. And nobody's doing anything. Maybe the state's attorney. No. But, it's something that I think we need to look at it the way that the system is going, because what's happening, especially with banks. I always give people a chance to clean up their property, if it's a resident or a constituent, but if it's a bank that owns the building, we write tickets all day long to the bank. So, yeah.
If I could also, if I just want to add one thing to what she just said, a lot of the things, when you have a troubled building on your block, everybody knows, pretty much, you should know who your neighbors are. You have that problem house that's always giving problems, that maybe kids are always hanging out, that undesirables or whatever the case may be. First of all, you got to call us, okay? That's how you get the ball rolling. The numbers of calls for service, all right? Based on what it is, if they're selling drugs there, or if it's a gang hangout, or whatever, it's an abandoned building that the gangs are using, you gotta let me know these things. We'll look into it. I can refer the building to troubled buildings in our unit. We'll start a case on that. We work very closely with our corporation counsel's office to try to take properties from individuals. But like everything, there is due process. Everybody has the right to get their due process, and so that takes time. Judges, lawyers, they all gotta, deal their stuff in court, but we have to give them their process. So it's a lengthy process sometimes, but you gotta bear with us because we're trying to do the best we can to build the best case, like the state's attorney said, to try to get the persons to either evict the problem tenants or get rid of the property, okay? And as far as businesses goes, we work very closely with Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. BACP. When there's a problem business, like on 91st and Commercial where they were selling drugs from the store, we went in there with BACP, and what we did was they found the license violations. I can write them tickets for not having a regular license, but BACP goes in there and looks for every little thing. I mean, from the floors to everything. They just go the whole way, and we can close a business down. It's frustrating because people end up selling licenses and then they do different things to try to get out of problems. But that's something I believe the city council is already working on to try to, avoid that system. But we're always working on those things. But you got to let me know when they are so that we can do something about it.
And in order to bring businesses, sometimes I promise you, because I know you're going to piggyback on something, but I think one of the, go ahead, you go first.
I just was wondering, Alderwoman, if there is a list maintained in the board of the vacant buildings that is cross-checked with City of Chicago list.
Yeah, I can pull a vacant home, I can pull a vacant house list, yeah.
But do we know that every vacant property is actually listed?
That's a good question. I haven't really cross-checked it. I don't, that's a great question. I don't know.
Because I think that has to be the starting point.
Right. Go ahead, Nikki.
So part of the problem with the vacant buildings are the ones that we know about are the ones that are reported through the city's database. And you actually have to pay a fee in order to report it as vacant. So there are many buildings in the ward that have gone vacant that we don't know about. So we do encourage and we do log that information when you have a vacant building on your block. Because I know that happens plenty of times when I check or when I get a phone call about a vacant building, I check the City of Chicago website, and sure enough, they don't match up because they haven't reported it vacant. So if you do know of a vacant lot, please call our office because we do track that.
And as far as bringing businesses to the ward, I am an alderman/realtor. I do this thing called taste and tour of the 10th. And I talk to people all the time. I bring them down here. I show them the ward from north to south, east to west. I show them the 10th ward through my eyes. And I think that's why we have 13 new businesses here. So 13 new businesses since I've been here. So, yeah, go ahead.
My name is Memo Rodriguez. I grew up here in South Chicago and I live on the east side. Phil Sheridan, I went to grammar school here. They never let me talk in here. Arnold Mireles, I went to school with Arnold Mireles. Arnold Mireles was a big court advocate for the community. He did a lot of good. I wish I could remember the two older ladies, Mexican ladies that lived over by 87 that used to, they were fantastic too. Do we have a commander? Thank you for all your opinion, guys. It was fantastic. Do we have a court advocacy group for?
We do have a court advocate. You can speak.
We do, but I'm always looking for volunteers. That's the problem. Our group is a small group, and we're one of the only districts still that pays gas mileage for people to go to court. And I believe judges and lawyers take notice when the community group goes and they follow a case from start to finish. It sends a message that it means something to you. That's what Arnold Mireles did. I mean, he followed it, and that ultimately what led to his death. But it wasn't in vain, though. It wasn't in vain because he accomplished so much. And unfortunately, you're always going to have that group of criminals that don't respect the law, doesn't respect you, me, anyone sitting at this table. But we need, as a group, to stay together, and we need. So I'm always looking for volunteers to follow these cases, and I'm not asking anyone to stick their head up any more than anybody else, but to at least pay attention to what's going on in the case, and then we have meetings so that we can always find out what's going on, and they report back to us.
Thank you, Commander. I have one other question for you talked a lot about what's happening around the area, the library, what's happening, homes, state park. When are we going to get something? When is the time to do stuff in this area? It's good. I mean, we have time and program, something like that. I'd like to see your office or something for the community. This community, not South Shore, not Pullman. I'm talking about here, South Chicago, east side of the west.
One thing that the Congresswoman did early on was, and been very successful, is you don't no longer have Pt2 in your ward. There used to be, mountains of Pt2 in this ward, and the Congresswoman recognized that as an issue and concern, and she started a national effort to get rid of Pt2, which then the state joined in, the governor joined in, the mayor joined in.
I have to step in here. I respect it. I felt that. Sam felt that.
Yeah, you guys came to
Our
our
neighbors over here. I'm just saying.
You guys came
Look,
to
you
our
know what? I'm sorry. I have to stop you right there.
Okay.
We could have used a little more support from you. Yes. We could have definitely used a lot. We worked hard. One of the things that get me the most is when former aldermen, when officers step up and want to show their face in front of the camera and get the picture and say how hard they worked. Because we worked hard. We did what happened there. We did that. Thank you.
Okay. I have another question here for Robin Kelly's office. Why do we need a credit report check to address an issue? I always get release forms in the mail.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Why do we need a credit report check to address an issue? I always get release forms in the mail from the office.
A credit report?
No, we don't require a credit report. I don't know if it's case related, but when we start cases, we do send out.
Can you stand up so everyone can read this?
I think that's case related, so when we start a case, if that's what it's being, if that's.
Can you stand in the front, because I don't think they can hear you back there.
Sure, if the case is, if the question that was asked is related to cases, we send out privacy release forms where we ask for your social security number. There's no, credit check necessary. We ask for your social security number in order to make inquiries to federal agencies. I'm not sure who asked the question, if you want to get more specific, but there's never the need for a credit report, so.
The reason we ask for those, in any case, we ask for your social security number, that's because you have privacy rights, and our office cannot go in and ask any federal agency for information about you. It's private information about you unless you authorize us to ask on your behalf. So if we were trying to contact the Social Security agency about your check or your disability settlement, we cannot talk to Social Security because it's private information for you. And the first thing Social Security will ask us before we can do anything is, do you have a privacy release form from the constituent who is authorizing you to make this inquiry on their behalf? Without that, we cannot do anything. And that's with any federal agency, military, veterans, education, healthcare, whatever the issue is. If you want our office to intervene on your behalf, we need, under federal law, because your privacy is protected, your authorization to make these inquiries. But we never ask for credit, and we don't charge for any of our services. There's no charge.
This question from the
John?
No.
Yes,
it was the
Sue.
one-
I'd like to ask you about the U.S. Steel lots, especially 8400, 8404, 8406, Green Bay. I live in front. What do you say? You know what I'm talking about. It's Green Bay because I live there. Anyway, they're dumping cars back there. They're working on them, and then if they can't fix them, they leave it there. There's 3, 4, 5 cars at a time parked there. So today I went on the website, I checked the tax information, and I found out, well, of course they're U.S. Steels because I grew up there. I knew they were U.S. Steel lots. But it referred me to Ed Burke, Alderman. He's the attorney for the U.S. Steel tax information. So I called them. He said that I asked him if he could help me to get some information to call the U.S. Steel to fence the lot in or do something. I offered him to pay for the fence if he'd do it, 3 lots. I would pay for it because every night my dog barks. I have to go out in the alley. One night, 2 in the morning, this guy's shooting heroin in his car. And there are lots.
Can you talk to Anna out right here and give her all that information so everything we can follow up with you?
Okay.
So, I mean, I'd like to talk to you more about that, just to find out, I mean, if they're dumping abandoned cars out there and
Yeah,
stuff, then.
there's one there now. There was 3 of them the other day. There was 3 cars on jacks for 3 days sitting there in those lots.
Okay,
And
yeah,
kids
well-
walk up and down to go to Sullivan School.
Yeah.
I need help because I'm trying.
I was gonna say, I need all the information though, I need the names, if you can talk to Ish back there and we'll do a constituent form, so then this way I can share the information, we can work on this together and we can get right on it.
Beautiful.
But John, I need you to write it down, because really,
Well, I understand. I can't remember nothing
Okay.
myself.
Mr. Soriano?
I have a question for the commander. About 3 weeks ago, I personally called the police department because there was a truck parked in there for the next couple of days in my block. We are 50% seniors in their area. We don't have enough space for any truck to be parked in there. This truck has no plates. They have a trailer in the back with aisles for cutting grass. Fine. About 15, 20 minutes later, the police arrived. They checked the truck. I was witnessing. No plates, no license. To walk away, they never come back. The next day, I wake up, the truck is still there. I don't think it's fair.
I agree with you. First of all, I don't know where that is, but if you give me that address, we'll take a look at that for you, all right?
Mr. Soriano, can you fill out a constituent form? We brought a bunch, and I want you to write this down, and then I'll work with the commander and his team. We'll get on it the first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
All I'm going to ask, anybody who's got problems like that, complaints, where something is wrong on your block or something,
Fill out the form.
if you fill out the form, that way I can address it. I can give it to my officer right here, who'll go out there and that's what he does. Tickets cars, tows them from lots, things of that nature. So as soon as you let me know and I get that information from the alderman, we'll take care of it.
I'll be out the next day.
Well,
We'll be
you
next
do,
day.
they will.
What
Yes.
is his name? Mr. Officer's name?
Officer Carroll.
Officer Carroll.
Yeah, go ahead, you do the picking.
Regarding the USX site, you mentioned that they're in the due diligence phase, but you also mentioned that it's a done deal. Having worked in this area, when they're in the diligence phase, it's very common for the partners to pull out. So I'm just wondering, is it a done deal, or is there still a chance that they can pull out?
Well, in my mind, all I have is hope, right? We've been waiting 20 years to get something on that property. So the enthusiasm